Good morning, everyone. I was going to say it is day, but it's really week 4 of 100 Days of Making Comics Anthology Edition. Now, I was going to make 6 pages of comics in 3 weeks, and I've fallen a little behind. But then yesterday I did a live stream with Ox, and it turned out there is still a small chance for me to catch up. So, wouldn't be much of a challenge if I didn't rise to the occasion. And I thought it would be fun to kind of document making page 5. So since this is not going to go up on the actual day that the actual week that I'm making it, because we want to keep some of the, we want there to be surprises. But I figured after the anthology is out, it might be fun to have a making of available at some point. So I better start documenting what I'm doing. And so here we go. Now, in case you are new, and this is the first video you see of myself, I'm Jan. I'm a Dutch artist. I've been living abroad for quite some time now, on and off in London, England for about 10 years. I also lived in Colombia for a while, for about a year in Bogota. And right now I am in Barcelona, Spain, for almost a year. And the reason I moved out to Spain, besides that I have some very good friends here, was the opportunity to just completely change my life and try out some very different things work-wise and have more time for myself and for making comics. So let me show you the comic I'm working on. There is the next page to be. So what I've done is I bought some very nice large paper that is very nice to work on with the Staedtler pens that I tend to use. I do have brushes and a regular bottle of ink, but I've just fallen in love drawing with those, so I figured I'd just go at it like that. So this is my first page. This is one where I stayed within the lines more or less perfectly, but as you can see, I got a little carried away. Like, I've always wanted to go crazy with cross-hatching, and there's certain cross-hatching by the likes of Arthur Adams, Bernie Wrightson, that I really, really love. But it's a very subtle art, getting the lines just right. And so I thought, like, maybe I should practice first, and then because of time, because of this challenge, I figured I'd best just go right at it and make the most of it. And so it didn't take very long before I was really displeased with this page, but I finished it anyway. And now I figure there's enough here that I do like, that a little digital touch-up will help make this spaceship pop out a little bit more, you know? But let me not withhold you from the next page. So I've ordered them so that it can read like a comic book. Here we go. These are pages 2 and 3. So this one turned into one big illustration, and the idea behind this page is a passage of time. So I want to have a big, like, the first 2 pages really set the stage for what is happening. And then in this one, and this pinup, there's a passage of time. So this is really either the same man or his descendant on that side. And it will be clarified a little bit better in the text, in the little captions that will be all over this page. But there's a passage of time from starting out in space in this idyllic society, and things becoming a little bit more cutthroat with armed militias and whatnot, while on Earth people are still having the fantasy that is being explained in the captions of venturing out into space and trying to find a new home for mankind much like a dandelion, the effort is made to not make one big ship and see if they make it out there because of the perils of traveling through space, to make as many ships as possible and to hope that one little seed from Earth finds a home across the galaxy and starts its first human outpost somewhere else, while fully aware that most of them might just be lost forever and never make it anywhere. And in the meantime, I wanted to show an Earth that is being ravaged by climate, while very much praying that this is going to, because all of their money and efforts is going into this program, that they make it out there. But that, like, this very hopeful approach very soon turns, or over soon, as in over hundreds of years, turns into protest while people are hanging on to the hope. Why should they still be paying for things, their grandparents decided on, while these people are living in space and things are getting a little bit rough, as you can see, while I explain how they intend to protect themselves from radiation and deal with insurgencies and like the rise of space pirates. And then we go on to the next page. This is page 4, which I finished up late last night. So this is another fine example of me drawing outside of the borders, but I figured, like, if I ever do sell these as original pieces of art or put them on display or maybe put them up on the web, this will be a nice little added bonus, and you can zoom in. Whereas this one, I might even zoom out here. You can see the borders right here. And so I'm thinking of maybe scaling this down so I get a little bit more of the action. I'll probably have to add a little bit more here afterwards, get a little more in. So back to page 4. So going from 2 big pinups to some very broad storytelling that takes place over 100 years, I wanted something a little bit more personal and ground it a little bit more. So this is a couple of people, living in space and having a conversation, and I wanted to show on the one hand what happens to people living in space and what is the same as what's been happening to people on Earth over hundreds of years, where you build these civilizations and then they fall into disarray and people just kind of forget where they came from, and like sometimes even forget about entire civilizations having existed. And so this is really like people having a talk about why they're in space and what they're doing, and like one of them is more clued up than the others, and so they're having a bit of fun with each other. But it also displays this growing ignorance and just this, this is just their life, and like they don't know any better. They don't really feel like they're part of this big hope of mankind to make it across the stars. They're just clinging on to life, Like the further out they go from the sun, the harder it is to harvest energy, and heat and light can become a sparse, can come in short supply. And in the meantime, like having shown what has happened in the previous 100 years on Earth with all the ravages of climate, which I continue down here, people are turning their backs on the project, and people no longer want to pay for something that was decided before their time. While at the same time, I wanted to have another layer of story using the myths of Daedalus and Icarus flying too close to the sun, and it's about technology they use and giving themselves new opportunities and then taking it too far. Or the Tower of Babel, like wanting to reach for the heavens and being punished for it by God. I thought that would provide a nice little parallel and another way to ground what it is that they're doing in space. Like, okay, so we all know these, like most of us all know these stories of people taking it too far, but here's people who have taken it much further. And are they now reaching the limits of what humans are capable of? Are they touching for the heavens, and once again, are they going to burn up or freeze to death or going to be punished by outside forces, you know? This is one panel. I like what's on display here, but it's too messy. I'm gonna have to clean that up as well. So yes, so that's kind of where we are. So one more time. For this 6-page story for the 3100s anthology, Life in Space, I want to have a big tale of mankind making a big push to reach outside of our solar system and find ourselves a new home. Well, things are not going that great on Earth, and the trouble of sustaining such a mission over hundreds of years, and what happens. And then we get to the point where there's I wouldn't say big twist, but like the next, so they're now cut off psychologically from the Earth. People are starting to forget why it is in the first place that they were doing this, both on Earth and in space. And so on this page, I want to, like, I'm debating whether I have the logical next step, because I, looking at my pages as a comic book, as I just shown you, I kind of feel like what I wanted to have on this page, what I now want to have on this page, is already being hinted at in the previous pages. So I feel like there's this thread of piracy which I can take to the next conclusion, where as some of the ships try and go out of the solar system, a lot of them get stuck in the Oort cloud in a battle for survival, and the pirates kind of take over. And in their growing ignorance of their own origin, turn their attention back onto the inner solar system, but having fine-tuned their space warfare, they're heading for Earth, like in a mode of survival, with the technology and the means to wage warfare on a scale that the Earth might not be accustomed to. And so I thought, like, one of the technologies they could be using out in the Oort cloud is like, what is available over there? Asteroids. How do they protect themselves? What do they do to survive? They mine the asteroids. They clothe their ships in asteroids to protect themselves from radiation. They use the asteroids as projectiles against each other. So imagine if you move back into the inner solar system with the ability to nudge asteroids out of orbit in a very precise manner to hit a target, and then that target becomes the Earth. So now the space invaders returning to Earth have the means to destroy entire cities, even the entire planet. That could make a cool little twist. And it actually made me think of one of the last sci-fi movies I saw in the cinema was Star Trek, that third Star Trek movie, and it had that twist of, I don't want to ruin it for you if you haven't seen it, but there was a similar twist where people had forgotten their origin, so to speak. But in the case of Star Trek, they went to a planet. And in the case of my story, they're going back to Earth. And this story now is being told from the point of view of the invaders, who've forgotten where they are. But you could easily see this as an introduction to a bigger story, a prologue, if you will, and then you switch it back to Earth and tell a story within this genre of Space Invaders, where now the reader knows that these invaders are actually like a failed project to get out of the solar system and are now turning on us. And now it's all hands on deck to survive their technology, which is pretty low key. You know, it's just rocks in space rather than giant lasers or really cool space battles, spaceships flying, jetting about. Like, there's none of that. Like, that's not the kind of technology these people have. They do have spaceships, but it's not going to be X-Wings and TIE fighters. It's going to be a little bit more mundane. That's cool. I think that could be really cool. I can't come up with a story like this. So I think that might make for a pretty cool extension of this story if I ever want to go back to it. But in the meantime, let's finish this prologue. This is my red pencil, actually. Maybe. Alright, I got the cat on my lap because she won't leave me alone. Alright, let's... I was thinking we could continue the story from the previous page with the crew hanging out, so I could have them be overtaking, or I could just start a new page, like a new decade. I guess I'm gonna have to make some tough decisions, and like, where am I gonna take it? But I think after hinting at the space pirates from a previous century on page 2 and 3, to finally see like a big space battle would be kind of cool. You know. All right. So that would mean we need a panel. Them realizing something is up and they are under attack. Just have him look at a watch. Is this actually visible for you guys? I hope so. Alright, so now here in the background she was doing something on a previous page which was off panel, and so I can kind of show like what it is that she's been doing. Alright, so this is a little gruesome. I didn't want to put it on the previous page because there was so much going on and it would clutter, and I was already cluttering. But I wanted to have a little joke of them having that conversation in which it becomes obvious to the reader that they are losing touch with their origins on Earth, having been out in space too long, and so they're having that conversation and they're doing stuff, working, and they're making coffee, and at some point one of them turns around like something along the lines of like there's something wrong with the coffee machine, can you help me out? And so then it turns out the coffee machine is like just a torso with guts, which is pretty gruesome, I know. So basically they're using some kind of genetically modified parts of some animal to make their food rather than plastic and electrical tech. But I figured there was too much on that page already, so I kept it off. And so now I'm thinking, so what if I take that tech, and it's not necessarily a coffee machine, but it's like something here. So these are like so basically you got the guts, you got like the liver, the stomach, lungs, like spare body parts in a plastic coat with tubes, and like, so that's what she was messing with this whole time. Just a little gruesome detail for in the background that doesn't need to be explained. It's just something for you to go like what are they doing, you know? Okay, so this guy is looking down, phone buzzes. She's looking up. She's got her coffee. Okay, so now we need to zoom out and show. And so this could be a big panel. Bigger than the page. So if I do it here, so this is an insert, then it's clear you go from here to there. I could have it all around it, but like I figure if this is going to be a shot of the spaceship, then once I've done it and then I'm like, it'll look better if I fill this in completely, I can just add that. But for now, we've got so the human drama, so all right. First I thought of having the first thought was an outside shot of spaceships attacking each other. Then in keeping it with this, so the next shot is, so he gets a message from command or something. And so this is like a control room. And so in the control room, there's all sorts of gadgets hanging. And this is all like outer space thing. All right, so here there is someone who then gets to park orders. of figures. I'm just blocking in the space for the head. Basic expression. So he's holding on to the railing. Duct tape together. Exaggerated poses. This guy might be too big. I'm not sure. Like, he could probably be a lot smaller, come to think of it. Alright, so this is... We are back. I realized that this is too important to be off panel, as in the border. Like, it has to be on the page. So I moved the page up a couple of centimeters. And so now anything that is below here will not actually be included. So what have I been up to? The people from the previous page are, they're getting their rude awakening. They are under attack. And so this is the part where we kind of explain the economics of survival in the Oort cloud, as people mine the asteroids and they covered their ships with asteroids, having rings of asteroids. And I hope these kids stop screaming outside, because I'm an old man and I don't have a lawn. But so they're under attack. I show you the bridge, if you will. I show you how they're attacking. I'm very happy with this panel. These are the Comet Riders attacking this ship. Big explosions. This one from over here reeling in the other one and ultimately subduing them and taking all their tech and taking all their supplies and taking all their people. And coming to the these are like space pirates, barbarians. Hundreds of years down the line, they've got their own community, their own culture going. They're very different from what we've seen so far over here, which is more Star Trek, if you will. This is more Conan the Barbarian or Mad Max set in space. So they come across more hints of their origin, and with a perspective of piracy and survival, they're very keen on learning more about this, because their stronghold on planet X compares in size to the Earth. I'm probably going to have to double check this, because I read up on planet X, like the recent discovery that there's this planet outside the solar system which is tilting the orbits of the other objects we found beyond Pluto. Very cool story. And so this is the part where they go like, check this out, this mysterious alien world, and set course for the inner solar system. So that is where I'm at, page 5. I'm very excited. There's lots of, one of the vibes I wanted to go for when starting this 6-page anthology was, old Marvel comics, old 60s sci-fi Marvel comics, including comics like the Fantastic Four and not just the really old stuff, but some of the John Byrne stuff where they go into other dimensions, and in a single issue you would get this whole overview of a completely different society. I really loved that as a kid. And so on this page there's lots of stuff that doesn't really have to be explained, but there's enough for your imagination to just grab hold of it. I'm more of the story takes place in here rather than it does on there, but I'm just providing all the hooks. That is really cool. That is really exciting stuff. And so now, these being the rough pencils, the big question is, because I've had some mistakes on the previous pages where I kind of winged it a little too much for the sake of saving time. So rough pencil, really rough, not filled in at all, and just went at it with these straight away. And mistakes be damned, continue, and hopefully fix things more once I retouch digitally. And so looking at this one, I'm a little bit maybe I should do a tighter pencil run on some of these faces so I don't mess them up, especially the ones that are supposed to look like the previous page ones, That's what I'm thinking right now. But it's been another hour of working on this, and it's time to catch a movie and have some lunch with my old flatmate. So I kind of continued from the other day, and I did this panel. Let me show you this panel. I'm very proud of this panel. It's really cute. But I didn't catch a lot of footage of making this panel, and I was kind of like, well, that's okay because, you know, I'm already up to an hour in this video anyway. So let me show you where we're at. So we got this massive attack of this, one of these spaceships covered, it's almost like coral, in comets, with its own orbit of comets that it mines and uses for protection. There's another one. And so it grapples onto our hero's ship, if you will, throwing comets at them, traveling by comet to them. I think this is something that I've had from the beginning, the Comet Riders, and then some of the characters that we get friendly with on the previous page. One has an antiquated device called an Apple Watch, and we get a little glimpse of what the other one was up to this whole time, which is looking after these intestines in a bag. So I drew that one. Kind of, I like his expression. Things I don't like about this right here is, and that needs a little retouching, is this arm lines up with that arm, which would be fine, but the mug is too big. This should be at more of an angle. There's something very wrong here, and it bothers me. It's not terrible, but it bothers me. And then I had this idea. So obviously he's being notified of this attack, but then considering the impact just that happens to be in the panel above their head, I think because the expression, like she's having this funny expression, like they're having a moment that I'm gonna have to write. But unlike this dude who's just like, he's freaking out. So yeah, so this guy farted or something. But then I was thinking maybe it'd be better if he's looking at his watch, and then in a little homage to an ancient movie called Jurassic Park, she looks at her cup. So I'll change the eyes, make her look at the cup, and then have spillage from the cup, like, hey, what's going on here? You know what I mean? Maybe like put these in like some kind of movement on the ship. And so he's like, what? So then they run into action into this cockpit. Raid! Yes, they are being raided. I love this. This is very, I think you can see my influences all over the place here, but it's cool. So yes, they're being raided, lots of panic. I originally envisioned this to be like some kind of ceiling screen with lots of panels. You can still see the lines, but then I remembered my character design workshop with Jake Parker. And I think this is a good example for me on when to stop rendering on a page to keep it clear. This is the 30-70 rule in action as far as I'm concerned. This is the 30%. Lots and lots of detail here to slow you down. Like you can see all the little guys with the little chairs and control panels and like stuff. It's another thing I don't like, by the way. I like this fence right here and how it's not drawn, but I don't like that these lines are parallel to the fence. I think they should have been differently to make him pop out more, but you know, you live and learn. So I'm not going to draw those in. I think that would overdo it. I think I would overdo it. Then at the same time, since I didn't draw in the starry background here, to contrast with previous pages, but also to keep it clear, like 30-70, I could draw it in and then take it out as I make this all a gray tone, and then like make those white lines or something. I could do that, I suppose. I wonder how they do it. Like, does the artist simply draw and then the colorist takes them out, or it's a little colorist flair? So now on to the next panel. So still, I have to draw this one, but check this out. I am very happy with this one. The red line is where it's going to get cut off. but I love stuff like this. The little white outlines, you know. It's a bit of a puzzle, keeping track of everything. I had a little bit of fun trying out textures in space, like as you can see here. I think that's a cool effect, but I wasn't sure about how to do it, so I thought to myself, like, I'm just gonna try, and then if it doesn't work, I'll turn it into stars anyway. This is about an hour. It's a good, maybe even more. It's a good hour of like drawing lots of squiggly lines and just slowly filling them in. And so now, see the Comet Riders. That's like those guys riding in on the action. And then, so he has a spear, which is really just to kind of help identify them. So I have a spear right here. So this scene makes sense, doesn't make sense. It's very bare bones here. I think of these as the, think of those as the sleeping pods where, so they're supposed to colonize a different world, right? So they have lots of people on board sleeping, like to be defrosted once, if they get there, that kind of thing. But now they'd make for a fine addition to the workforce. So they're being kidnapped. Also the technology. They're gonna add this ship. They're gonna strip it. They're gonna do whatever they need. But there's so it's a bit bare bones, and so I need to worry about perspective and like some of the metal paneling on the inside. But this little bit here where so there's two of them standing on a balcony, right? So the balcony, so I had a little balcony on the panel above, which is like this metal, what do you call that again in English? Anyway, it's a metal fence. It's a bit of an odd metal fence to be in space, but that's okay. Why not? So should I keep that style and then put it up on that one? Could do that. A little bit of consistency. Could also just make it glass. But I was just kind of thinking like, okay, so they're standing on this little balcony overlooking this massive hallway where they're moving people and stripping the ship of goods, technology, moving them out through the tubes that have also been featured on a different panel, a different page. And I want one of them to look at information. And then I thought to myself, so did he come across some kind of pen drive? Did he, like, why would this information be on this? Like, wouldn't it be like in a computer? Like, why would it be there? Like, it just, you know, it allows me to tell two stories at the same time. Like one, they're stealing information. The other, they're stealing crew and materials. And then I thought, like, well, what if, you know, they captured the leaders, and so one of the leaders is going to be there on the floor, begging for mercy or something, and he's got a drive with information as a keychain, and the other one is simply holding him. So, like, he's like, oh, that kind of thing. You know, just to add a little bit more drama in this panel. A little bit more story. And then I could make that the character from the panel above, if I can make that clear, because I didn't give him any obvious, I mean, his face, I suppose. Well, that's another thing to think about, like if you give characters obvious clothing or like some kind of visual features really stand out, then it's easier to draw them again in a different scene and kind of, you know, it's because of the features, like the silhouette, like say a fur coat, that you instantly make the link like, oh, it's that same character from earlier, even if the face is turned away or is not that clear. So that's kind of what I'm thinking about. So on to so that's technically 1, 2, 3, 4, panel 5 on page 5 with Yanimal. Just checking to see if I'm representable. Presentable. Good morning, everyone. It's Saturday. Since this will be shown in the far future, it doesn't really matter. It's my day off, and I love my day off. I just had to open a window because all of a sudden I got a cough. I think it's because I have a cat, unless I'm got something stuck in my throat. But I'm not allergic to cats, but I'm just thinking because he's always in here. I just need to clear the air for a second. So I managed to find some more time yesterday to work on my page, and this page 5, is taking me much too long. I love it, but it's taking me much too long. So this is a good example of, for myself, just how much time it takes to make a page, especially when you try and cram it full of things you've never drawn before and lots of detail. So it's taking a little longer than I expected. So some of the things I'd like to point out over my breakfast. Are, all right, where were we? Excuse me. So using that, some of the things that were pointed out during the workshop on how to make things pop more to the foreground, I kind of just applied it to this figure right here and gave him a thicker outline to make him pop a little bit more against the background. And it certainly worked. I really like the hand. Overall, I'm quite pleased at how this came out. So you see the little guy against the glass. This guy is making some gesture. In the foreground, he's like against the glass, like he's being pulled out on his keychain. I don't know how clear this came out, where so the guy is having some kind of holographic projector come out. He's trying to prevent it from happening, like latching onto his head. I think this came out a little iffy. It was worse before, and then I just started applying dark shadows because I'm like, well, I want to draw people's attention, but because it's also small, I need it to be clear. And so I just started adding blacks where shadow would be, rather than cross-hatching. And I do think it's a lot clearer. I also think, like, I like this arm, but then the line continues in the cloth. And it's not bad, I just think I should have done that differently. So maybe I'll do that in Photoshop. For myself, I think this hand over here holding the lens backwards is clear, but at the same time I'm worried it looks like some kind of swirl in the cape. Speaking of the cape, I was not happy how it came out over here. It was a little too light, so I started adding more ink. Started adding some texture that, you know, just makes it very different from the starry background, and I just needed it to really stand apart because I was worried that these lines would continue one in another, and sometimes that's really cool. And here I was like, no, that's not like, that needs to be very clear that this is underneath and it's something very different. Okay, so meanwhile over here, so there was another one over here with the sleeping pods. I erased that one. I didn't like how these lines came out, so I started making them into some kind of pillars. I like the explosion. I was worried about the grappling hook thing pulling this all down. I think it's clear this is all being destroyed, especially with an explosion. But then I thought, like, I'm not sure it's clear that this is a grappling hook of some sort. So I added the very massive chain, and then hopefully with a little bit of gray tone, that can be clarified a little bit more, even though the grappling hooks are on the top panel, but here it's more of a wire rather than a chain, so I think it'll be fine. Also I started worrying about like some of these lines, just to give it a little bit more depth. I started crossing it off where shadow should be to also make it seem a little bit more further away from the panel up here, you know, so you can see that all across. Added shadows. I mean, this is all fine detail. Maybe people don't really pay attention, but I do think it helps sell the 3D space a little bit more. So yeah, so what needs to be done is I intended there to be lots and lots of figures being hauled off. I can still do that. Just exactly how many, we're gonna have to see, because it needs to be clear what it is, unless I don't want it to just be dots. There's some very light detail here in pencil. I'd like that to show through in inks, so I need to get my finest pen and try that out before moving on to the next panel. So, time to get started. part of the page. So I put this line here because I like this so much. So imagine if the page would be cut off over here, right? It's like, no, that has to be in there. So so this part, oh, I took it from down here. I just moved the page up, giving myself that leeway. I really like this hand, like I really like this gesture, but of course now it's going to be cut off. It could still work. It could still work. But I think for clarity's sake, I'm just gonna have to redraw this. I'm also, because this is a PG book, this was originally envisioned to be some sort of crazy sword up against someone's throat. I'm going to change that. Like, there's no need for that. That's not what this is about. But I'm thinking of maybe, because on the previous page it was made clear the girl was the smartest one of the bunch and the others all had no clue about Earth, and then here they kind of rediscover Earth in their archives. Then maybe they'd want to talk to her. You know? Or maybe it could be him. And like something along the lines of like, this guy might know someone. He says he knows someone. The plot thickens. So as you can see, I just had a full-on explanation of what is going on for about 5 minutes, and I didn't hit the record button. Look who needs attention. All right, let's try this again. As you can see, I have not written down a script. Like, I've written down somewhat of a story. I've got lots of ideas. I've been developing these in the 100 Days of Making Comics Anthology Edition, if you followed along with those. But I didn't write down everything perfectly, like what has to happen. Well, maybe what has to happen, but not like panel per panel, like how I imagine a script to be. And this allows me to still move things around a lot and come up with things on the spot to help further along the storytelling. Well, if I open that door, he's not gonna leave. That's what drives me nuts. Yeah, I know. You're crazy. So, I just had this thought of like, it'd be cool if the person on their knees over there, which is not necessarily the same person with the keychain with the information, if that would be the guy we've been following along with the girl, and then the guy is being introduced as like, this one here claims he has information or knows someone who might be of use to us, and that is pointing at the lady. You know, like a little bit of betrayal in the space of 2 pages, always fun. And then I thought to myself, it'd be cool if, because for them, in order for them to get from the Oort cloud back to Earth, because the Oort cloud is massive and it is so far away. I mean, if it turns out that they could get back, you know, like in a year, it'd be kind of ridiculous, because I've been setting up all these generations and all this time passing, hundreds of years passing in 6 pages. So it'd be cool if right about now they refer to like a son or a grandson or daughter by name. And that then on page 6, when they do reach Earth again, it is that person who's there, because these have passed away because of the vast distance and time it would take for them to get back to Earth. That'd be cool. would be cool. So let's get to work to redrawing this to make sure it fits in the panel and that it's clear. And now I have that line, like I like the shape of it still, but it's a bit like, maybe I shouldn't have put that down. Oh well. All right, let's go.
Curiosity Stream, where you can stream incredible documentaries ad-free from the best filmmakers anywhere in the world.
And that's precisely what I was thinking over here. You see, originally, if you remember, I suppose I could splice something in. So I have someone dragging probably that guy over here to his attention while he's mesmerized by the hologram he activated over here. That guy went missing all of a sudden, as it is Lance. Could you be quiet? Thank you. This is really important. And okay, now I lost my train of thought. So this was originally the outline of the balcony that you see here. So I had his arm here with the lance, and then I thought to myself, well, this could then be another panel. So the guy is dragging, so one of the Marauder pirates is dragging the guy here, says he knows someone who might be of use, and then over here I have a cutaway to the smart lady that I might be interested in, and then my mind just kind of started wandering because I had his arm like this and the staff was pointing in that direction, and it's kind of an odd spear, which is one of those wildcat spears. I think that's what inspired me. So I thought, like, well, maybe this is that spear, so it's like huge like this, right? And then the perspective is like that. So he's holding it. So it's a really strong perspective, like jumping at the viewer. So I wouldn't have any parallel lines, confusing and whatnot. And then I could still use that as a panel and be kind of creative. And then I thought to myself, after a break, well, I want this to be a panel. I mean, I kind of have to. But I want it to be a little bit more than the obvious. Like, I want more information on this page. Like, I want this is the part where they learn about the inner planets. And where they, they're in the Oort cloud. They haven't really, the only planets they've seen are pretty much bereft of sunlight. They're pretty much in the dark over there. They're not even close to Pluto. So for them to find out about the inner planets and, like the kind of wealth of material they would provide for them, for their effort, for them to find out about Earth and to see oceans, for example. Like, I was thinking, like, what if there's a picture of a giraffe or something? Because I was just thinking, like, this is all like being projected. Like, what if this is also a projection? And so first I was thinking of a single image, like the sea and a boat, and then I thought of a giraffe, and then I thought, like, well, what if there's like a million images, 1,000 pictures from different channels all at once. I mean, someone who has seen screens, of course, but who've been cut off from the databases and just kind of floating in space, to be subject to just your everyday cable TV on Earth. Like, of course, they'd be completely mesmerized and want a piece of that, you know? Hello everyone, this is Jan from the future. It is now September, 7 months have passed. And I came across this footage. I had kept it around for quite some time and I thought I might be using it for things like Patreon and but then the Kickstarter started getting a little closer and I thought of mentioning it to Marshall, who's one of the organizers behind the The100s anthology, and he told me to upload it so he could show it off to the others and see what they think. And so here we are. It's kind of weird looking back on my progress in the last 7 months. It's definitely fun, like having such a really lengthy chunk of video of myself actually talking through my process and just kind of going like, man, I really sound like I know what I'm doing. But even now, I'm still 7 months later, I'm like, I have no fucking clue what I'm doing. I'll just keep drawing in the meantime while I figure it out. So it's a little late, which is why I'm talking a little bit softer. But so some handy dandy observations from having watched a little bit of this video now, just before I'm uploading it and making some little bits of editing here and there. I think the best thing about the project for me in hindsight was the deadline. The little competition Ox and I had was really what helped me just stay super focused and not, as I've noticed again with making my Phosphor comic book, just things are just kind of meandering along. And I've made a lot of progress on my comic book, especially in the writing department. And my art has definitely progressed in the last 7 months, just steadily drawing and practicing and doing faces, and to the point that now I look at this art and I'm still very proud of these pages, especially if you pledge to that Kickstarter. You can see the full grayscale coloring I did. Very happy with that still. But there's also, for however detailed it is, there's a lot I had to learn on how to pull a whole page together. And there's a lot I've learned since about making shapes more solid and more tangible, if that makes sense. I feel like I can't really put my finger on it, but like I see the mistakes I've made in the past, and I see a lot more mistakes on these pages where I'm like, I really need a thicker outline right there to just make it not pop, but just clarity on the page. So yeah, that's cool. Can't wait what the next 7 months will bring. So yeah, thank you guys for watching this video, and thanks for pledging to the Kickstarter. Or if you haven't yet, I'll be sure to post a link somewhere around here so you can check out the Life in Space anthology comic book that myself and 15 friends I made online put together as part of the The100s comic book anthology. It's really cool. I've already had some sneak peeks at the book as a whole and got completely sucked into it, and I've been reading for like 2 hours, like reading all the stories, and like it's a really fun book, and I hope you check it out. So with that,